with calling the meeting order. I'm gonna just have us go around the room real quick and introduce ourselves. We have a couple of new members, and I really appreciate everybody participating. It takes the community to make this happen. So we'll start with Lorraine.
I'm Lorraine Sullivan, I'm the business manager.
And I don't like your resignation, I wasn't.
Yeah,
See that?
I tried to talk her out of that.
We're gonna blame me for it then, just so you know.
Amber Burns, board member.
Brian Lamar.
Can you go to the middle and say whoever's
And
Hey, just a second, let's pause, just a minute. There's a seat for you, sorry. You're in the hot seat. Yeah.
yeah, if we have that other chair or table, maybe it's individual.
There, you want to come over here?
Yeah. Okay, so we'll go back to Kyle, right?
Yeah, Kyle Jones, I'm the committee member.
Christy Ford, elementary middle school principal. Jared Ministry special program instructor.
Sabrina, number forward, the unhappy board chair.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Committee member.
It's Tim Janosowski, member committee.
Anna Sharp, next to Trina, longest serving budget committee member, I think, so we try to get rid of.
See how it goes next year.
Yeah, I know, right? We'll see how it goes
No
after tonight.
promises, right? So, and Dan Dugan and Superintendent.
Cindy Crookshank, executive secretary.
And the cow chaser over here.
I don't know what's my name, Jenny Chris.
Welcome, everybody. It's time for us to elect a committee chair and a vice chair. Do I have any motion? Anybody want to volunteer?
I'll nominate Tim.
I'll second that.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Tim, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
It looks great on your resume.
Yeah.
Good job.
Okay, Tim, you can take over. We need a vice chair.
All right, the nominations for vice chair for volunteers.
I'll nominate Amber Burns.
Second.
No.
Third.
I think that's enough votes right there.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Dustin did it for years.
I was thinking of making a sister do it, but.
You can tell Dustin she said that. I
Oh, I don't.
You wait for me?
yeah, you're gonna call for it.
Oh, what am I supposed to do?
It's been moved and seconded, yeah.
Been moved and seconded.
All those.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Or?
No. Passes with one no vote.
Cindy's good at that.
I am.
Same thing.
I thought this is the.
All right, you're gonna have to walk me through this.
Okay, so then just go ahead and say, number 3, additions or adopt the agenda. Do I have a motion?
Number 3, additions, adopt the agenda. Do I have a motion?
I move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second?
Motion's been, was it first and second?
Perfect.
So, look for adopting the agenda.
Aye.
Aye.
Can ask for any votes.
Any opposed? So the agenda is adopted. So then, does everybody have a chance to look over the minutes from June of 2021?
I move to adopt the minutes from the June 1st, 2021 meeting.
I'll second.
been moved to adopt and seconded to approve the minutes. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? So whatever I'm supposed to say next.
Motion passes.
Passes. So Dan, it looks like it's time for you and your budget message.
Sure, so it's actually inside here, but I'm supposed to read it, so I will, sorry for the redundancy. So dear Budget Committee, parents, students, and members of our community, presented the following pages of the 22-23 budget represents the district's plan to support and provide a quality educational experience for all students of Perryville School. Budgets are not simply a collection of numbers and figures, they represent the values we hold about each student's journey through school and reflect the community and school board's vision for our school. None of us could have predicted the events the past 2 years, which we have experienced together, and some of the items in our budget have been adjusted to account for the changes. We present this budget based upon the second year, 51% split from the 2021-2023 state school fund of $9.299 billion. There are fewer unknowns with respect to the effect of COVID on our schools moving forward, but some budget areas will still potentially be impacted by lasting effects of the past 2 years, such as our food service program. Budget assumptions and unknowns. Our 22-23 school budget was built upon estimated state school fund and grant revenues, typical yearly student enrollment, construction bond, and grant money. We're budgeting at 314 students, which falls in the range of our typical pre-pandemic yearly enrollments. The state will fund our 22-23 budget with a higher ADM W between next year or this current year to stabilize funding. This February 2022 estimate for the state projects a weighted ADM of 459. We will need to monitor that number closely at the beginning of next year to make sure we stay in line with that projection and keep the budget on track as projected. Our contracts for both employee groups plus other confidential administrative contracts are settled for the upcoming school year, and those costs are reflected in this budget. Obviously, unknowns for this budget include supply chain issues, school food services, fuel costs, and construction cost escalation. Also, recent staffing changes at the Willamette ESD has led to uncertainty for some of our specialists who we have typically contracted with to provide services. Student Success Act, a significant portion of the SSA and SIA, is the SIA, sorry. The SIA is a relatively new source of funding to address students' mental and behavioral health needs in addition to academic achievement. The SIA allows us to enhance existing programs in the areas of expanding instructional time, address student health and safety, reduce or maintain class size and caseloads, and provide a well-rounded education. The SIA plan generally targets class size based on poverty and lowers class sizes at elementary grades during target instructional times. In addition to this, it allows us to staff our school with a math specialist, focus on small group supports, and instructional practices with mathematics. Lastly, the SIA funds can cover costs of specific capital improvement projects approved by the state, as well as allows the district to maintain and expand supports for students' mental and behavioral health needs if needed. Other items of note: continued current educational assistant staffing, which is reduced by the 1.0 total FTE, just 0.5 FTE for general education and 0.5 FTE for the special education. Add autism specialist, I'll go into more detail about that in a minute, but add autism specialist of 1.0 FTE with our neighboring districts, contributing for approximately 0.75 FTE. It's actually a little bit more of that overall cost. Did not fill the 1.0 FTE teaching position vacated in the summer of 2021, and funding for playground and kitchen modifications. Conclusion and closing, I want to thank the school board, staff, and community for their dedication and hard work in navigating the past 2 years and preparing for the 22-23 school year. Our district would also like to thank the members of the budget committee for their thoughts and attention in reviewing the proposed budget and providing feedback as we continue to move forward and meet the challenges of educating our children with a quality educational experience. We will continue to advocate at the state level for not only our students, but all Oregon students. We will continue to look for ways to innovate and improve, and we will continue to partner with our community to ensure that our students succeed. Thank you for your consideration of the 2022 2023 proposed budget.
Thank you. So we're ready for the budget presentation. I assume that's you, already.
Yes. So thanks for coming, and this is for the 22-23 school year. This presentation is kind of gonna be an overview, and then most of it's gonna be open for questions, comments, and then also email them for next time. So I was just gonna go over the new items proposed in this budget. The SIA Fund 258, which is your SIA funds, is a portion is gonna be used for the CTE classroom for construction and equipment. There is a land purchase fund 404 in this budget, and it's a designated transfer from the general fund to purchase this land. 0.25 FTE additional in food service. It's reallocated for actual service provided. Autism specialist, 1 FTE, contracted out 75%, so it's revenues and expenditures will offset at 75%. So we have about 25, as Dan was explaining. Construction projects that we are going to be looking forward to is the kitchen remodel, the playground remodel, bond, awesome, and seismic grants, and those are in process still towards completion. Some variables we'll just look at is construction costs, and then food service revenue source. And this budget is based on an SLP program versus the seamless summer option, which has been the past 2 years as a seamless summer option. So I projected the budget on an NSLP, National School Lunch Program. Challenges is gonna be going from a seamless summer free option to NSLP, which is free, reduced, and paid lunches, making that change. May have a, it's been told but not confirmed, about the small additional state funding for meals. So,
What does
Go ahead.
SIA and CTE stand for?
CTE is,
Career Tech Education, SIA is Student Investment Account,
Black tax.
Okay.
Thank you.
which is
Equals SIA.
funded by Anna's favorite tax.
Equals getting chopped up.
and then some different variables.
Fill it. I got more out of it.
Different variables that we estimate for the budget is your beginning fund balance, the ending fund balance of this year.
Renee, when you say that you're going, was the seamless summer used for year round, did it get spread? Is that why the loss is for the seamless summer? So seamless summer wasn't just summer lunch?
Oh,
It
correct.
was spread
And no,
across
they
the
went
year.
with the waiver. We had a seamless summer waiver.
Okay.
We're usually on the National School Lunch Program,
Right.
and then COVID hit, and the seamless summer waiver came in for the last 2 years, and now the federal has said they're not going to, approve that.
So we're kind of going back to 2019.
So I had to do the
with
budget on
SLP.
NSLP.
Okay,
And that was a question I had for you because,
yeah.
we knew federal wasn't going to happen, but we heard rumblings that it may be something they were looking at. So, and we weren't sure with our state what they would look to do.
Yeah, it would have to be done in 2023, which
Yeah.
doesn't help with this budget.
No,
itself.
exactly. So that's why we went with this one.
Unless they put it back in at the fed level, so.
So just what our budget is built on, really, it's budget assumptions. You have to assume, and then, of course, past history and you build it on knowns for your expenditures and knowns for your revenues, and then history, you build it on history and assumed estimates. Also, the revenues for our budget assumptions, I'm just gonna list these, but we'll go over them later. Page 118 is your state school fund revenue. That will show you the breakdown. Also in here is property tax and local revenue. So the only revenues we get really are state school fund and your property tax and local revenue and common school fund. It's very limited for our revenue coming in for the general fund. And then that's extended ADMW. It's average daily membership weighted. And there's different weights that make our ADMW, our extended ADMW higher than just our student count, you might say. And the state school fund uses the higher of the two. So I was just gonna go over an overview of the budget. And so I've listed the page numbers at the top just because page 10 is a big budget assumptions page. It shows you your actuals that have been enrolled, that are reported to state. And so your actuals are coming from the state level that we have reported. And then you have October 1st enrollment of this current year. And then we have what we estimate for the next year. And the state uses the extended ADMW, which you can see is way higher than 314. So they use 459.02. They also base our state school fund. It starts at a 9.299 billion, but it's a 59-51 split. And they give us the extra 51 because expenditures are assumed to be higher in the second year. We're in the second year of that split. So the amount that is going to be coming to Perrydale for the state school fund shares of 4.4 million. Included in the state school fund is $617,000 worth of property tax and local revenue. So we also are assuming our beginning fund balance will be 1.7 million, and it's used as a resource. It's about 27% of a revenue resource to balance our budget. I'm also estimating 535,000 used as planned reserves for our operating contingency in the general fund. And so salaries, other payroll, PERS, and health, those are other assumptions we use. So everybody assumes the step increase on 150-day contract day for students. So on page 17, of your budget, this is an all funds with FTE. So this is explaining that all your fund numbers and their title and kind of what they mean. So you have 100 means your general fund, and then you start with your 200 funds all the way down to the 300 level is your debt service, which pays for your bonds. And then you have 400 levels, which is your capital projects funds, which has your bond, awesome seismic, and a new fund for our land purchase as a capital item. There's also, I just made a note up here on Fund 201, CARES Act. That 40,000 is ESSER 2 funds only, no more ESSER funds except for ESSER 2.
That's the remaining ESSER money, right?
Yes.
Because once that's gone, it's gone.
And is there a deadline on spending that?
It's, I think, September of 2023,
Okay.
It is.
but we're gonna,
Last day of September.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's
September
it's not
30th,
money, but
2023.
it's not much, but usually
Because
with
it's-
it.
Yeah, because it's ESSER 2, it would be September of 23, end of September.
the next page I would like you to look at is page 13, or page, summary.
15, we're going backwards.
Sorry, yes. Summary of all funds, right. How about that kind of excuse me, this is a nice consolidated picture of where our budget is being spent. And the most important would be your expenditure summaries by function. You can see in general fund, special revenue fund, debt service, and capital across, and then instructional support services are in the fund function level. And then it's broken out, of course, in more object detail. Objects are your salaries, your associated payroll costs, purchase services, and so forth. And your revenues at the top is the summary of all funds by source of revenue. Page 16. This page actually is kind of a reconciliation page. It shows you in the first column the general fund revenues less the total expenditures, which it looks like the expenditures are over the revenues that we're going to be getting by 1 million. We're also transferring out funds to go to the special revenue column. So to make up and balance, we have a beginning fund balance of 1.7. You can also see in the other financing sources of uses, that's where our That's where our 678,000 transfer outs of the general fund are going. Some to capital funds, which is the 80,000 in land use purchase, and then the rest of them are special revenues. Special revenues can include your food service, your athletics, those kind of things. Page 19. This is an important page of your transfers from the general fund to. So going out of the 100 fund, this is where your 678,000, the breakdown of it is. So we have 1,900 into the E-rate fund. And then we have facilities, food service, athletics, FFA, and so forth, and then the land purchase. I think we'll go into greater detail on kind of each one of these funds, because if you have any questions on that.
We're gonna go into detail on those.
I think I did have enough.
Just
to go
because we've
into
never
detail on
had
that.
an interfund transfer to E-rate ever, like ever.
Yeah, so I can just go over that right now.
Okay.
So the reason why I have E-rate, it is a special revenue fund, or E-rate is, but it's actually more or less our wage bill that comes in, and then we get funding back, but they only give us 60%. And this year, we don't have enough revenue to cover our beginning fund balance was covering our expenses. And so now, next year, you will see actually 40% probably as a general fund transfer to this E-rate to cover the extra 40% that 60% is not coming from. So this is a portion.
Is that because we went in the hole on like hotspots and things like that?
No,
Or does it
actually,
come out
only
of E-rate?
wave goes
It's
to
only
this.
wave goes
This
to that?
only is wave. We have.
So wage
there's-
prices are going up and not keeping up with E-rate.
No, it's actually that wave wasn't posted properly, and so I was posting all the bills to this account. And so the expenditures are now caught up with our beginning fund balance. And so this is you're gonna see this fund.
From
this
here on
transfer
out, right?
From here on out, but it's
Yeah.
gonna be a little more than this year. This is just to cover, we have a little bit of beginning fund balance left. This is to cover the extra revenue. And this is on page, that's 210.
Say that again.
Let me find the page that I had listed that the 210 revenue was on.
Page 56, 57.
Oh, thank you. So, yes, they only give us at a 60% reimbursement rate. So,
Eventually it was gonna catch up.
yeah, correct. So on page 24, this is just so that you can see that payroll expenditures, meaning your associated and your salaries, are about 65% of your general fund expenditures. But that's really not telling the full truth when you see that other funds are associated that are in transfers payroll. So you have transfers of 22,000, 11% over here, but it's also funding for payroll in food service, athletics, FFA, and Measure 98. So your percentage of payroll is higher than the 65%. But that's just how much is in general fund.
Okay, Larry, so here's my,
Yeah.
oh wow, what the hell? Salaries and benefits, associated payroll costs and salaries are down 3%.
Okay,
It
so
was 70% in 17-18.
this is general fund only, though, too.
Well, but no, comparing to, okay. Well, again,
It should be.
11%?
I compared pies to pies, but we may have done the pies differently.
Right.
I'll have to look into see.
Yeah, no, I was just really shocked, I'm like, whoa, that never happens.
I think it's because of the percentage, actually. You have more transferred for food
That's
service and
why.
athletic, and then your percentages go down. Okay, that's what it was.
Got excited for a second.
Okay, so this one is your state school plan on page 118. It drives budget for revenue.
Page 118.
Yes. So this is an estimate they give out on February 25th. They may give us another one in May, usually. So I used, and it's based on the one in February, but you can see that the first, left-hand column there shows you your property tax breakdown, common school fund of 34,000, your other in lieu of. And these are based on estimates I provided them. So this tells you in fourth box down, exactly, it's add your general purpose plus your transportation grant.
We need to get you a laser pointer.
Well, they have a laser here, but it isn't really, oops.
That works.
I apologize.
Technology loves you.
Okay, good.
I have a really cool laser thing I could cut outside with it.
Okay. Anyways, page 118 shows you your breakdown, also shows your ADM. So total revenue per extended ADMW is a $9,651. So that's a good indicator of how much per ADM weight you get.
Ray, can you email us and include next time the actual ADW sheet? You know where it starts, you put in your student and then your
Your
rate
wages.
reduced and your nursing and homeless and all that kind of stuff. Can we get that to see how they got to the 45902?
Yes.
I would appreciate that, thank you.
Okay, so 120 is the important sheet that we'll go over. Any questions? I just wanted to hit on the main highlighted areas that will come up with questions, hopefully. Is your proposed maintenance and budget project listing. So you can see that I broke it down at the bottom there, which fund is going into 250, how much is going into the athletics, which is 253, and how much is going into Fund 260, which is Energy Fund Trust. It's an energy fund. So these are the, you can see that we're adding a little bit for the gym supply, gym flooring, new floor mats, so forth, and then some playground equipment purchases. These look high, but I put some notes underneath, new playground purchase, saying that using the last year's transfer that I did for the playground versus the old gym floor replacement of 100,000 that was shown in last year's budget. So that's why it's,
That's where that money came from.
yeah, also, we're using 215, but only 100,000 was already transferred, so it's gonna show in your beginning fund balance if you look at the details. And 115 is additional. CTE construction for the SIA program is a new transfer. We're doing kitchen modifications, which is the remodel I talked about. The same idea here is we're using 25,000 from the budget for the freezer to add to this, so only 25,000 is new, and 25 is gonna be in your beginning fund balance as a resource.
What are we building for CTE?
So remodel of the old library, and that's what we proposed in the library and computer lab.
Turning it into a CTE one.
So part of it would be food science and culinary on one part, and then the other part would be a general use classroom that could be convertible for
And we ran out of
occupations.
CTE money, and we couldn't put it in the bond.
The SIA, yeah, it's gonna be, what's that?
I mean, I know we've had to cut stuff out. I just thought that was included in the bond.
No, never.
So, moving on to page 121 and 122, these are in regards to the FTE, which is full-time equivalent. FTE means full-time equivalent. And
It doesn't mean full-time employee.
I was listing that out, so anyways, the general fund has only 39.38 FTE in it. And then you have special revenue funds, which is actually including your 1.86 in athletics plus your special revenue funds on page 121. So preschool, you can see that actually on page 121. I have estimated 0 for the person in there. If you see in the budget that there's money in there, it's because it's the rollover from the beginning fund balance, and I more or less put it to say supplies and materials. It's not hitting for a payroll person. So we have SPED IDA funding, title, food service, SIA, and other grants that are here. So this is something that was asked, and it's not part of your budget document. It's a topic for discussion. I put up there not as in proposed budget. And it's stating that we have the 535,000 as our operating contingency in our proposed. So this would be the less payroll for July and August for 22-23. And so I split it out into saying salaries and benefits. And that's how much, if we wanted to pay July and August within the current year of 22-23, that's how much it would cost us directly, right out of our contingency fund, lowering our contingency fund to 198,000.
So with all the supply chain issues and material escalation and all things going on in the world, is it a good idea to use most of our contingency for that? How do we address other issues?
I would not recommend, as a business manager, I would not recommend doing this. It was just asked to make sure I have it shown out of the contingency, because right now, we get funding every year, and right now, every time we have 12 months of payroll. This is adding a one-time deal of 14 payrolls in 1 year, and with everything else we have going on, oops, sorry. And that's included in this budget.
We've been asking for this since, how long has Johnny been off the board?
No, Johnny was asking for it before he was on the board.
Boom. So every time it gets brought up, the budget's already built and we can't do it. So last year when we passed the budget, it was stated that it would be in the budget this year and it would get done.
And I gotta take a bottle over and tell him why we're not doing it again.
Well, we just keep kicking this can down the road, and if our bond project is going over that far because we waited so long to get started with it,
Our bond project's not going over.
well, then we can pay it,
Then what?
then we can pay it. I just heard Tim saying that with capital construction and, stuff going up so much that we shouldn't do it, but we've talked about it for so long.
What is the operating contingency?
So we
What is
kind of
it
like
used
to
for?
keep it at a 500,000 in case things happen and come up during the year. That's why it's at a 535.
And the
this
board's
ending
goal
year.
is 400.
Oh, it is cool, that's cool, okay.
Has been in the past.
Okay.
We like 500,000.
So,
Well, I remember this issue from last year is where the money was lost, basically.
Mhm.
And then it
Couldn't find it.
couldn't find it and we found it, and now we're trying to correct the error
it's a,
from the past.
It wasn't lost, it just didn't happen. We talked about it, it didn't end up in the budget. But I guess, well, it wasn't, it was in contingency.
If you read the minutes, so we never found it. I mean, we couldn't go back and reconcile where it was. That was part of the conversation. And so we lost it because it got spent somewhere. So it's not in carryover, it's not in cash carryover anywhere that we can find.
it would have been in your beginning fund balance.
Right, it wasn't
That's why we had
in
to
your
find
It's
it.
disappeared over the years. Somewhere.
What
Well, it's not over the years. Last year was the year we were supposed to budget for it and didn't do it. Right? I mean, back
It came
to,
up- it
back
came
to, huh?
It kind of came up last year, and that's why.
Because the year before, when you took over,
Yeah.
it was something we had promised Johnny we would do, but we never actually did it. We never put it into a budget, we never actually took money and set it aside, so that money never actually got lost, it just never got allocated and taken care of.
No, it doesn't get lost, it would just actually have been in the beginning
Beginning
fund
fund
balance.
balance.
Yeah,
So
So-
just carried over.
yeah, so
But
use of it.
But what's the difference, so can you explain to like the whole budget committee again? The difference is that right now we operate on a cash accrual, right?
Cash
Cash
basis.
versus accrual.
Modified accrual, yeah.
Okay, so Johnny Cruikshank always wanted us to go to modified accrual, correct?
And this is based on the cash idea. So
Right?
this amount is based
For
on
you-
cash.
Oh, he wanted us to go to cash and we're on modified accrual.
No, we're on
You just want
cash.
us to pay back this summer,
Yeah,
the 2
But
months.
in case anything ever happened, because we're obligated to pay those 2 months if anything ever happens.
If anything ever happens,
And we
right?
wanted to be at that point where we didn't have that burden hanging over our heads if we didn't have the money. Because right now, depending on what our deductible is in our insurance policy, which will go up when we build new buildings, we're not bigger, more insurance, more buildings. We're going catastrophic here, that if we didn't pay down those 2 months worth of salaries and something happened, we're done.
But I think that's
So we
also
always
what
want
your
to pay
operating
off.
contingency, if it's 320,000.
Then you have to pay that.
330. But I get that, but you have that, you'd have to pay that, but then you'd have to pay that at that time.
You'd have to pay it at that time,
Yeah,
which
and
would
and
be
you
much
have the
higher, because every
contingency.
year it goes up.
I understand that.
That was the other argument last year, yeah, I was just reading minutes.
So it's just apples versus oranges as to how you like to do business and what you want to have. And our past board member and board president wanted us to have this paid. It was one of his board goals and it never happened during his tenure. So he asked when he left that the board would focus on making that happen.
We actually voted on it as board, when I was board chair, before Johnny left. We voted on doing this. And then it got lost because we switched business managers a few times. But it got lost, but we voted on it. You could go back and find it in minutes. We voted on it as a board to do it.
So that's what this is. Just so y'all know. So why would,
Sorry.
Was that explained again?
Explain it.
so what
Yeah,
this
it
is like, so, you know, within your fiscal year of paying salary and payroll, you wanna pay that within the year. Right now, we're paying, when our year ends the last day of June, we're still paying July and August to our employees. And it was actually from their work last year, it's not the beginning of next year's work. So we're paying, so we're always kind of in the rears.
Because
that
our
make
fiscal,
sense?
our fiscal starts July 1.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so July to July, July to June 30th.
It should be July first to June 30th, and Johnny just wanted it clean cut like that.
So there's a carryover right now.
So
They want to get that.
but it
Yeah, right.
also, we've been operating in this 12-month cycle for a long time, so
Very.
it's gonna hit us this year if this is decided a lot of money and make our contingency go down to 198. If we wanna put 2 more payroll cycles within this budget,
And next year it would go back up.
and next year it'd be 12 months.
Next
So,
year.
That's
so
like, what do you
14
wanna write the
months.
bullet and pay in that
Do you
extra?
pay now or did we pay 10 years ago when it was less? Or did we?
So it was a one-time savings, my guess is about 20 years ago. We decided as a district, none of us in here, but that they were going to pay for 10 years instead of 12 years to get that savings for the 2 months with it.
10 months versus 12 months.
Yeah, the 10 months versus 12.
We can stretch payroll over 10 years.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I think it was
So 10
like
months.
24 years, 20.
I was just telling her, it's been at least 20, because I used to get 10 paychecks, or 12 paychecks basically over 10 months. So in June, we get July and August paychecks
Right.
as well. So basically, it was a one-time savings, and the idea at that time is you're probably not going back to the other way. So you're just saving that 2 months, and then it's just, you're paying this year's last 2 months out of next year's budget, basically. But if you try to catch up, like we're talking about, instead of paying for 12 months, which we're doing now, you're gonna be paying for 14 for the 1 year. And then after that, it would go back to being 12 months. But do you go down? And that's a question Tim's asking in the larger group, and that's a discussion last year. Is this what the group wants to do or not?
So that's why I have it as a topic, and it was told, I was recommended to build the budget not this idea, but show this at the presentation.
Well, it really comes down to risk. What's the risk of having to use our contingency
Well,
this year?
yeah, I mean, it's like if your school is ever gonna go out of business, it's not gonna go out of, it's, so that your funding is always gonna be there, so I don't, this is, the risk is, I would highly recommend not doing this, but it was, the reason why it was recommended was because somebody had voted on it. That's why it's even come up, I think.
Somebody, that was probably me.
Or, no, I mean, it was,
Unanimous vote when you voted. That might be right.
I said, probably. I was also there when we went from 10 months, we went from 12 months to 10 months.
Well, and we had larger contingencies. I mean, we had years where we had 700,000-800,000 in contingency, and that's when the conversation started, because we didn't want to carry that large in contingency, because we didn't show that much cash on hand. And so that's when the conversation started, and now we've whittled it down to where our carryover's less. And now I'm gonna sit here and agree with Tim, and against myself. My concern is your funding level for 2023, 2025 biennium is gonna be a heck of a lot lower than what you've been getting. Because we just spent billions of dollars and created brand new state agencies and state jobs that we can't fund going forward. And my concern is, and potentially a healthcare program that'll pass on the ballot measure, and I don't know how we're gonna pay for it. So I'm now gonna sit on Tim's side of the fence and say, I'm concerned that we're gonna be sitting here cutting hard next year, because we've never, ever cut anything back. We've never cut anything out of this budget in the entire time I've been on.
And we're gonna have new construction department.
I've watched us cut out of the budget, just for the record.
Since
You say
2009, since
furnished?
I've been coming, I haven't seen
We have
budget cuts,
furniture
because I
funded.
pleaded for budget cuts and we've never
You
had
had it
it,
in
so.
No, in our budget, in our construction budget.
So right
It's
before I
all
started,
in it, so we won't need
in
anything.
2009,
We shouldn't need anything
Yeah, from here.
and we're headed there again.
Okay.
furnished, plus we have our current stuff.
So, I mean, I'll get off the soapbox, but I just wanted to get on the record that we did, again, as I stated last year, we did vote on this. And we keep committing to getting that monkey off our back, and not getting the monkey off our back.
I think what I would like to say is that maybe, I wanna make sure that as we hand this over to the next business manager, this board agreement and vote from 3 years ago, that it doesn't disappear again, that we don't forget it and lose it in the, you know what I mean? I don't know if we'll ever be able to go back to a chunk of 14 months and go back to doing what Johnny wanted, but let's not lose sight of it, I guess is what I would ask.
So is it possible to do 1 month this time and 1 month another? So instead of spending $336,000, we spend 181, and our contingency would be
You're also,
379?
well, you're also looking at, your employees. And so you're saying that, okay, we're gonna wait till August to give you the last check, but we're gonna push back July's into June. And it's just kind of a messy deal. So they'll check Chase and
Nobody
June.
wants to do that.
It used to be like in June, they gave them June's check, July's check, and August check.
Yeah, we used to get the last two, like, June 28th.
Right.
whatever, and told to cash it before the 30th.
Right. It was like 23 years ago.
Well, not so much that, just so I think it was easier on her.
To get it
book,
fiscal year, yes.
What, I suppose we should just move on to the budget and
Yeah,
see where we're at.
I put this as the last slide really, because that's why, this is open for time now for comments and questions, and then, or bring them to the next meeting. Email them so we can always read them out or answer them prior, so I'll have an idea of how to answer them in the meeting. You can send them to Dan Dugan, the superintendent, or me.
Or both, that would be best if you
Yeah.
did both.
Say that again, both.
To both of us, yeah. And then we would make sure that the whole group gets the question and then the response.
Can you email that slide out, that last slide? That you did, the contingency slide? Since it's, or is it in our book and I missed it?
No, but I can also just, and let's just go back to this guy.
If you-
This is based on a cash basis.
Right.
So this benefits is low, just so you're aware that if you ever went to modified accrual, that would like almost
But at least if
double.
I shove it in my budget, but.
Yeah.
I'm still.
I will actually, post this presentation on the website and then email it to you guys.
Sounds great.
Can we talk about the construction budgets a little bit? Do we have time?
That probably should be in the construction budget meeting.
Was the construction budget included in the overall budget?
Just as a
Just
general
as a
fund
general
number,
fund.
like it's 404, 401 as like, it's on page, it just actually says that your revenue source and then your expenditure source, it never gives any details in this budget.
And I can send you whatever information you want from that, Tim.
Okay,
Wasn't it also included in your board packet for last night? There's a cost breakdown and sort of.
But I can still give them the full breakdown from the last meeting.
So that kind of concludes my presentation, unless you guys have questions or comments that we want to discuss now, is like, we're on number 7.
is there any big differences between this year and last year? Anything we're doing different or is it? all
Yeah,
the
so
same?
I mentioned the 3 or 4 items. We have a new autism.
Yeah.
And that's gonna be sped, so it's a 1 FTE. The revenue is coming back at 75%. And
Okay.
because we're supposed to be giving only a 25% of the autism. And if Dan can always tell more about this if you'd like to.
Yeah, I was-
Okay.
0.22.
Okay.
So Aaron Henry, for those of you who don't know, is our special ed director, federal programs, and came to me about 2 months ago, I was there, and said, we've got a problem brewing. We've had a little hard time with getting people here for our language services for our students this last couple of years. And a lot of that has gone to remote learning stuff, and we finally got somebody in person partway through this year, but the first 2 months this year, we didn't really have anybody on site to do language services, specialists for the ESD. And since the beginning of school year, their autism services have plummeted the number of people they have, to the point where it was an alarm for us. It was also an alarm for Yale, Carleton, Amity, and Dayton. And so what Aaron suggests is that we look at pulling our resources together and spending it together and having our own person. And we're able to poach. This is kind of, nobody knows this is ESD, so please don't repeat it. But we were able to poach the person that's been doing our autism services and working with our kids for a long time. And she is really good, and Erin can speak to her more later if she wants to chime in at any point. But Jill has been fantastic, and to not be able to provide those services for our students with autism would be pretty detrimental. And Jill did share with us with the people that left. She has 23 years of experience. The next closest person has 3 years there, plus 3 kind of associated, so let's say 6 years total. And then everybody else is less than 4 years. And so with them losing 4 specialists and her having the certain credentials, they actually were going to take her off our caseload. And she asked them not to and was willing to give up some other stuff. She ended up signing an additional contract in order to do stuff outside of her contracted hours in order to keep our school. And it's not just us, they're afraid of losing those services. Like I said, Dayton, Amity, and Yale, Carleton are all on board with this too. And we will carry the contract because our salary is a little bit lower than those other schools, but then they will sign a 3-year agreement for that and take care of the other 0.78 of the FTE on that. Dayton being the highest one. And that will include evaluations. The ESD is going to charge us an additional $2,300 per evaluation. And this will include, for us, one to two reevaluations each year, or if I'm saying that wrong, correct. And then if we need to hire her for an additional one, we just pay her per diem. So we would just pay her daily rate. We have 9 days built into the calendar that we have for her that can be purchased, additional valuations by those 4 districts. So overall, it's better for our district because we still have Jill. We can almost guarantee we will not have her. Our nursing services have been up and down all these years, our language services, and with the number of students that we have that get served by Jill, we don't want to take that chance. And she's a real asset to our school.
So will you put Jill on a confidential contract and then just do an IGA with the other 3?
Yeah, so we're gonna do it. Now, we had talked about, she's,
Because if you put her on a confidential, then you can put her in your own salary benefit package and not have her in collective bargaining units.
No. She's a teacher. I have her in the teacher.
So you'll put her in the teacher.
so right now we have her
collective bargaining contract.
as a teacher one. because
How can
she's
you do an
certified.
IAG with 3 other districts with a teacher and a collective bargaining unit?
And we all just agreed with this, so now if we have to move it around to the confidential, we'll do that before the end of
So
this.
I'm just gonna throw my 2 cents in there and make her a confidential contract and not put her in your collective bargaining unit. Because I think that puts your collective bargaining unit and the district at risk for headbutting, and we don't like to see that happen, nobody does. And where you're doing an IAG, I mean, Jerry's contract is shared with Amity, and that's a confidential contract that's done. I think it's cleaner and a hell of a lot safer for the district.
And then maybe.
My 2 cents worth.
No, understood, and so our next step is to work with Lisa, ESC Legal. She's gonna help us draft up the contract.
And I would be shocked if your superintendents from your other districts didn't want to do that as well, because how would they write an intergovernmental agreement with a collective bargaining unit?
I think we were all going that direction. We were all writing a confidential. I didn't know, this is the first time hearing about teachers.
Just in there right now at that, because we weren't
Well,
sure yet
because-
which route we were gonna have to get. We understand confidential is gonna be a cleaner route to go.
It doesn't change the budget, I mean,
Doesn't change
it might change where you move her around in there, it doesn't change the budget, but, I'm glad that you said that, right? Because I think that it's a good conversation to have, so.
Any other questions about
Good
the
solution.
service that she provides? If we can, help answer any other questions, whether it's this meeting or in subsequent meetings, let us know. Tim, did you have something? I thought you were just.
No, I say my question about new things that are different weren't about the 4 things you went over. I just wondered, went through this last year and looked at the budget, and these all seem like pretty much the same categories. I was just wondering if there was something that had changed a lot as far as the money allocated to it, or was it all pretty much the same as last year, just.
Not a huge allocation difference, except for the operating transfer is larger, as you can see, because we're moving a lot into construction. And
And the SIA money.
the SIA money is larger because we can use it all the way up till 9, there's a 4-minute rollover for July and August and September, so it makes the SIA money look so much higher because we have to use it by 9:30. And then we have the new funding, which is about 303,000, so it's about 120 moving. I mean, that's gonna also be, that's 303, but it's in the budget. And also there's a few new, and it's minor, so athletics, positions, but they're tiny. And the major thing, of course, is getting rid of preschool, so that's not there anymore. So they're about the same that were in the last year's budget, except autism for preschool and a few new sports that we're offering for coaches.
For sports.
Okay.
So, can I ask my questions, Lori?
Oh,
She told me I
yes.
couldn't email to you, so.
Well, we've
It would
presented
be
the
fair,
budget now, so.
Nope, I get it, would be fair. So on page 8 under budget message, we built the budget based on pre-pandemic enrollment numbers. We did the exact same thing in 2021, we built it on 314. Based on school profile budget, or based on the school profiles presented over the year to the board, we've never gone higher than 304. We've had an average of 296. Will we be seeing a budget deficit based on numbers submitted to the state from last year, and was that accounted for in the budget? Because that's a huge difference between budget and actual
Talking about for this year or last year?
for this year.
For this year, they'll take the higher, so, 2 years.
Okay, so for school year 2021, the budget, 2022, that we're just getting done, the budget that we're finishing right now, is the recast last year. We based that budget on 314 kids. We haven't had that. So do they pick the highest month in the year? Do they pick a specific month? Do they pick an average? And if so, what was the effect of that? Because we've never hit the budgetary number from last year's budget.
So I did notice that our per student amount went up to 9,000.
Yeah, what page is that on again?
The state school fund is on page 118,
118.
and you can see it
For
went up.
last year,
No, for this 2022 year, it
the
went up.
2021-2022 budget. Last year's budget that we passed at this time last year.
Yeah,
We passed it based on receiving funding at 314 students.
yeah,
We ain't been anywhere close to that.
no, we're not. It's
The
not
highest
20 something.
ever presented to the board packets was 304, lowest of, well, right now, 290, with an average of 296. So did that affect last year's budget, or did they still pay you on 314 even though you didn't have that many kids?
They pay you on that 314 and they reconcile 2 years from now kind of thing on your
So
actual.
we're gonna be
you're
hurt 2
see,
years from now.
yeah, you're gonna see
Well,
the
you-
effect a little bit,
Well, but they take the higher of the 2 years.
yeah. And then reconciling though also. they
So
do
our goal is
reconcile.
to make sure that
In the biennium,
314 this year.
okay, so they use the last 2 years of what? Is it a rolling 2 years?
No,
Or is it based on bienniums?
I'll have to get the details on that, but it's,
Because that's a huge hit.
yeah, but there's like a May reconciliation, and I'll have to get that. I think if they give us a reconciliation of the 21-22 ADM, and it came, and so I'll get that for the next budget meeting.
Because it
Reconciliation.
has to be, I just don't understand. I'm trying to figure out how we're getting paid on last year's budget when we couldn't meet the budgetary numbers.
So
Based on ADMW,
Oh.
we wouldn't even be close.
So in December, I was trying to estimate these numbers for the estimate of membership and revenue, just the state. And it was recommended that I should go for the 314, because that is what we will do for the 22-23 year.
That's what you
And
said
so-
last year, though. Last year
know.
we said we were gonna get that, and we didn't.
So,
So I'm concerned that if we continue to not meet that number, why don't we bring that number down? Do what I asked for a long time ago when it came to budget to actuals, closer to our actuals, and then we're better off. Because if we can't get even 300 and we're budgeting at 314, that's a huge difference.
Okay, so on page 10, it shows your student enrollment count. This is
Right.
directly off of the state reportings. So you can see it 314, 315, 313, 312, 315, and actuals in 2021 came in at 294.
Which
That's
is so
kinda
confusing
the-
because, so I don't know how we
So that's
did
when
that.
kind of COVID and everything hit.
Because the average was 285 with a high of 307 and a low of 283.
Right.
So they must just pick a month and they snapshot that month, they don't go average.
These are actuals, they came right off the.
So then the school profile that's getting put out is not actuals.
The school profile has to do with every single month
Enrollment,
change.
not
in enrollment.
ADW.
This is not ADMW.
No, this is not.
enrollment. ADMW being
But it's-
100. When you add that in. This is
Isn't-
actual
is-
enrollment.
Isn't the number that they use off of an extended aid?
Yes.
So
But
it's not
you
actual
start,
numbers.
but you start with your student enrollment and then you add in all the specialized categories to get to your ADMW. But your ADMW is based upon total numbers, base number of students you all. Base number plus then your 1/4% and 0.5% and all those other things. So if we're reporting a base
That's
number,
not my understanding.
ADM is your student enrollment.
Right.
KDMW is your weighted enrollment.
I thought that these numbers were our,
These are our
no,
ADMW, these are
the
actual
459 is
ADM.
weighted.
the 459,
This is-
400 was your weighted.
These actuals are not weighted, but it's,
Is it the highest number for the month though? Is it the highest enrollment number? Is that what it goes by?
These are
The
actuals
actual.
for the state, for the annual. So when I go to the state reporting,
Right.
I actually print the actuals for that year, and then it's an annual thing. So these are coming in as an annual, and then this one for October 1st is what the snapshot for that through 306. When I run it again for the actuals, it'll go down probably because it's gonna take all year into it.
So you do a snapshot in October, and
Well, that-
that's the number we report to the state. You just said October.
Yeah, okay, so, and then I estimate, so I more or less, because it was told to me, I need to make sure that we're going to be filling those ADM categories and those students,
Okay.
and hopefully we will be.
Because
If
the
that's not
October
right-
enrollment for 2021-22 school year was 301 and we reported 306. Unless we lost 5 kids and gained 5 kids in 31 days in October.
Which
Yeah.
is likely.
Right, the profile is
The
based on
profile is a
like the
snapshot.
day of the report, like the day the report sends out, it could change the next day.
That's what I'm
So
trying to.
they're, yeah, so they're not always going to match exactly what she's reporting just because of when in the month the
Right.
profile is
Yeah, I
done.
get that. In September was 304 and August was 299.
But it may have been as high as
So we
as 303 that month and then dropped down to 299 right before the meeting. So what I'm trying to say is I'm pretty sure that these actuals are, here was your highest number in September, here's your highest number in October, here's your highest number in November, and it's the average for the whole year, right? It's not, that's how they get the number.
The state, so they
It's an actual number from your highest enrollment.
I don't do the ADM reporting, but I do know that,
It's how it was in the past.
okay, so I just collect this right off the state reports. And the
Right,
state
but how
reports
does the
are done
state get the report, is what I'm saying?
Through Missy, so do you know about?
Yeah,
the reporting?
I don't have the answer, but I can ask her.
Okay.
And
So
she
that we
reports
know for sure.
monthly, right?
Just quarter.
Quarterly.
Oh, quarterly.
Yeah.
And so it's not, there's only one number here, not 4 numbers.
Right,
So
I think it's the
actually,
highest.
it is weighted.
I think it's the highest for the month.
It used to be that they were, it used to be the highest number of the 4 months, and then you take the 4, and divide it by 4, add them up, divide by 4, that's your number for the year. It used to be that, I might be wrong, that's
We
what I'm
still
saying.
need to get it.
You're saying actual, and I'm telling you guys, I don't believe it is an actual, I think it's a weighted.
Can we look it up and come back next meeting?
That's what I was just saying,
Yeah.
I'm sending that to Morgan
Yeah.
right now,
Yeah,
and I think everybody in here has a decent amount of trust for Morgan.
yeah. No, I like it, I trust it.
That's-
It's
You
just,
like
I just
them,
don't
but you
think it's
trust
that.
them?
I don't like
Okay.
Oh, I
So,
do like them.
okay, so if we just get an answer on that, because my concern is that we budgeted at 314 last year, we're not even close to that. If you look at our whole year, we're not even anywhere close to that. So no matter when they snapshot to send you the check, the check's gonna be shorted, because they're gonna look at, unless your W's made up for your ADM, meaning you had more kids that qualified for more weights. That's the only way you would get to it, right?
And they also gave us more money for each
So-
student.
So when we budgeted last year, we budgeted based upon a number that grew
Yeah.
after the budget.
Yeah.
So we based our budget on like 9.9 or 9.6 or whatever, and then it went up after that,
Yeah. That's not $50 a kid.
okay? All right, so-
Okay.
So I guess my question then would be, I guess my next question would be then, if we're gonna budget again for 314, then that means adding 23 kids out of districts in grades 1 through 12, not K, but 1 through 12. Is that the right message to send?
That's the message we've been sending the whole time, all these years. I know we've had this discussion before, but we
But-
got 100 and, what'd you say, on the message you sent me, 167 out of district kids, or in district kids?
You have 160, you have 122, 126
In
out of district,
No, in district,
165.
165, so if I doubled that, that would be 50%, that'd be 330. So more than 50% of our kids, I know that was the number you were concerned about
Yeah, took 10 years to get there.
before, yeah, when it's, so that would be still about 16 less than 50%, or more than 50%.
So what is the purpose in adding that many kids?
Fun.
Pure money.
Well,
Because we also have 17 or
punctuality.
18 kids.
And punctuality, we're able to
Yeah.
offer the appropriate amount of programs, sitting at about 314, 312, 310. There's a significant difference in what we can offer if we budget and live below 300 versus, we don't want to be up where we were, my kids' the 3 kids senior year. We don't want to be up at 322, 323, whatever. That was difficult. We were bursting at the seams and didn't fit and it wasn't functional, but we're able to meet more individual kids' needs academically at that number. It's been a good number for a long time, and we've questioned this for many, many years, and year after year after year, we've seen that that's the best functioning number financially
So
for
we're
our
not
kids.
cutting any
If we
teaching
look-
positions for next year then? We have all of our teachers coming back in every program,
Between this year and next year,
2023.
We did,
We cut,
we did
yeah.
cut
We didn't
the
fill it
EA,
last year.
we did cut this half EA, half sped.
Right.
That's
So
one.
we still have,
And then-
we still
and
have
then what's
full-time
the next-
shop, we still have full-time Spanish teacher.
Don't have to
no,
fill
I was
that.
gonna say we
No,
cut,
We did not fill that last year.
So we're not offering everything. We can't.
we're offering different.
Okay.
So the numbers, again, if you look at 2015 through 2019, 2020, that number's pretty consistent. Yes, the last couple of years is pretty crazy. And looking at that piece of what has been able to give us that full educational experience, or that we feel like we can offer, that's been about the number that we've had. And it's been a number that, goes back well before the 2015 year. Yes, there was a year that was, 330, that was way too high. But that, again, has been,
2009.
it's been rare that we have that type of a situation. But it's been pretty consistent with the other ones.
All right, Lori, what's the next steps?
I still have
Oh,
more
you have a
questions.
question?
Yeah,
Oh, that's okay, sorry.
sorry, no, I have no more questions. So Fund 251, the special revenue fund, Fund 251, which is our lunch fund. With the loss of summer lunch program, seamless summer, and our uncertainties, what is the plan, Dan? What are we gonna do? How can we sustain this? What's our plan? We gotta feed the kids.
Kids.
I mean, are we gonna
We're
raise,
not doing it in China.
are we gonna raise lunch prices, at all?
That's what we
Like that?
discussed, which would be, as you know, during the summer, we come to the board with that, but
So was the budget built on raising revenue, raising lunch prices, or was it built on flat lunch prices?
If kids raise the dollars like 0.25%, 20 cents, 25%.
25 cents.
I'm sorry. But the biggest problem is you're going from free
Right.
to saying now, those that don't qualify for free have to pay.
Right.
That's the biggest
And then we're
challenge.
just
And so-
facing that.
Yes, and so,
And the cost of food right now is crazy.
and the cost of food, Brian, you're talking about fuel, and
Yeah.
everything like that, everything's kind of going up,
Right.
and so,
We're spending about $2,000 a week, is that right?
yeah.
On food right now.
Oh, and yeah, I mean,
We were, and some of the board members know this, we were given, we ordered oranges one time, and 2 months later, we ended up getting a box of lemons in place of the oranges.
I grocery shop, I get it, it's getting horrible. I mean,
I got a few phone calls on that under emails about,
kids want lemons?
I thought it was a joke at first until I asked and said, no, that's really what we did.
Okay.
But,
How does the budget account for all the inflation, basically? So the proposed budget right now that we're looking at, how does it account for increased food costs, fuel costs?
that's, the actual.
That's the other budget.
You try to do
Money
that.
out of general contingency and shoring it up.
So, yeah, I was trying
Which
to
at some
actually,
point in time,
I was actually going off of the estimated idea or the past history and seeing what we kind of fed people in months, different months on the NSLP program and who paid and so forth, to get my actual count of maybe how many people that were gonna be paying versus free. But also, that was back in 17, 18, 19, so it's a little bit different now. And the biggest challenge will be going from free to then now, oh, you have to pay kind of thing, but
Well,
you can't do that.
all kids, the free and reduced kids won't have to pay full price. The kids that weren't on free and reduced will start paying for lunch again. We've been doing free lunch in almost every school district. We're doing free lunch every single
Breakfast
day.
and lunch.
Breakfast and lunch for 2 years. Now we go back how it was 2 years ago. If you qualify for free and reduced lunch, you get a discount, and if you don't, you pay.
Or bring your own lunch.
Or bring your own lunch. Eat in your car, so Megan does. Okay, Dan, your turn. Fund 253, you are with me alone. What's your plan? Page 79. What are we gonna do? We
Wow.
doubled our interfund transfer in 3 years. We are $250,000 out of general fund. That $250,000 would go a long way to getting rid of those other 2 paychecks and not burden. What are we gonna double it again in 3 more years? What are we doing? Because it's all salaries, payrolls, officials,
And so on,
purchase services.
yeah, and some of those items we have budgeted, but for example, on, some of the other like private contributions, all that stuff, we don't know what we're gonna get each year. So we budget for that to have that expenditure availability, et cetera.
And-
Sorry, go ahead.
And then a lot of your cost of fuel or athletics, cost of hotels when they're traveling. And then
Supplies and materials went down,
to 51 from 25.
253.
Oh.
Page 80.
Supplies and materials, but it went up in the purchase
Purchase services,
services,
right.
which is your referees and so.
Right.
Fees to
I
enter
just-
games and so.
Yes, so
That's
purchase
right.
services went way up. I mean,
Yeah.
that doubled in 2 years.
And so-
And the overall interfund transfers doubled in 3 years. And it's almost $250,000. I'm just, what's our plan to get that under control?
So I will
Can
say
we
that,
sustain it?
well, I think that one of the things we have to be realistic about is that we're still charging the same amount for our athletic programs now that we were 20 years ago. And so that's something I think that we could definitely look at. Because I think that that is one source of revenue. Is that gonna make up all of it? No. We did have better gate this year. We did offer more, we had some sports not play, like middle school baseball, but we had another sport, golf, that had enough interest in going that route. So we have some sports that we had added. And then the officials costs
Oh,
are
yeah,
crazy.
they're crazy.
So, and I don't see that changing anytime soon as far as the amount of money. It's, I mean, they're doing the fee schedule, this now through the summer, and they're not going backwards on that, obviously.
So how long can we sustain that?
Well,
That's $250,000, I mean, that's tripled and doubled in 3 years. In 3 years, if we double that again, that's $500,000 on the budget.
And,
In interfund transfers.
Yeah. and then also,
General fund money.
if we don't use all of the interfund transfer, especially to athletics and especially to food service, if we get more revenue, those are left in the general fund. I don't
Right.
transfer them all, but, so this is a
But
budget,
the
so I have to
interfund
like,
balances haven't been, in fact, last year we had to shore some of it up again because it went over.
Our actuals
No,
last year, we
actually-
ended up at
15.
116. So we spent about 20 grand less.
Yeah,
than we
maybe it
did
was
at
the year
18,
before
19.
that, it was the year before that, then that we had to shove some extra money in there because it overspent.
I think it was that 18-19 year, wasn't it?
It was,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah,
And so we
overspent
were
the interfund
135, then
transfer.
139, then went down to 116. Now, again, that's a weird year because we had everything condensed into that last 6 months or 5 months of the school year.
2021. or maybe
Yeah, last year.
2021, yeah.
Yeah. And so this year, yes, it's
19,
not,
20, yeah.
again, we have that, some of that in there, supplies and materials, you can see again, that's a large one. Purchase services, that's the officials.
I was just looking at
Payroll costs.
18, 19, which was our last normal year. And that is, it's just a huge jump. I mean, that's huge. You can have all the money you want. I love athletics. I mean, I got a kid that sports free, but I'm concerned is how long,
New one.
well, one of them's more of a couch guy now, but he's boyfriend. He's a coach, he's a coach.
He's a coach.
How much longer, I just don't know how much longer we can do it. I see our beginning fund balance, and if beginning fund balance, $500,000, you double this again in 3 years, now you're down to $250,000 in your interfund transfer unless the state of Oregon finds a whole bunch more money, which I don't see happening. So I'm not saying no, I'm just saying, I hope it's on somebody's mind, because
School lunch and athletics, costs of those are, Julie and I already talked about putting them on the agenda this year to discuss the costs for.
we're not gonna make it up in sports fees.
No.
I mean,
We'll do that.
we have a lot of families who can't afford the sports fees, I guess, the way they are, and they're not that high. I mean, they're high, actually. I mean, if you look at surrounding districts, your sports fees are actually pretty high.
$95 for high school sport.
For one
That's
sport,
for my
I see 85 for one sport.
Oh, yeah, that's what it's.
That's
So,
what school, 120.
I wouldn't know that except I was told by the page,
Yeah.
if I didn't, she would be able to play the game, so. So please think about that, because I'm super concerned, you know, I'm always concerned about athletics, but I love athletics. We can't be everything forever, because it just comes a point in time where we can't afford that, so.
Well, and that, to be really honest, there's a lot of studies that show that these extracurricular activities, sports,
absolutely.
FFA, these things keep kids engaged in school
They
and coming
do.
to school.
Yeah.
So you're right, it might double in 3 years, it just might double again, and we might find value in it and keep it, but that means something else has probably gotta go. So we gotta keep an eye on that as a board and as administration.
Yeah.
And make decisions.
I think it's a lot like, when you look at well, it's not there anymore, but when you look at the FTE allocations and trying to, when we're adding some, we're trying to subtract some. And trying to be a net zero or net wash on that overall, aside from the autism person, but we did counteract that by not having her in that fund or the special, or the IA that came from the ESU.
Well, and the CAT does allow us to hire more staff, more aides,
Yes,
which is
it
good,
does,
because the CAT doesn't do it.
Yeah, one of the downsides though is if you don't have the sports, then your 314 is even harder to attain. Like, I can tell you,
Oh,
if
yeah,
some sports weren't offered here, there wouldn't be 5 Janusowskis going through the school.
right.
So,
I don't disagree with that, but surrounding districts have had to cut middle school sports to save money, and because club sports are offered in their district.
And we may have to also.
Right, so I just want to, it's just another one of my get it on the radar screen every single year. You know me, I pour through this budget with a fine tooth comb and have for a long time. Page 96, Measure 98 money. I've got a question. We did have a 2-year agreement approved by Oregon Department of Education to use 100% of that funding on Measure 98 for salaries and benefits only. Have we continued that agreement with ODE since this is the last year of it?
Yes, we're utilizing that fund still for our.
So this year was approved, and then we'll deal with next year we get there.
Yeah, and I think you maybe think about the SIA too with the funding for the 2-year agreement on that.
No, I had it in my book, but
Okay.
this was a 2-year agreement, which is why we could use it all for salaries and benefits and put interfund transfer money in there to shore it up, but we didn't know what we would do after this year.
Yeah, we're
So I wrote this book last year. Okay. Page 10, my last question, I promise. Page 108, the land acquisition. So last year we didn't have that in there, but I know it was a desire of the board to purchase the corner property. So where do we stand with that?
So we have, and some of that money is actually for potential legal, to absorb it, and you can do the fees with that as well, but
Title and transfer.
we have made an offer to Victor Brown, and he is mulling it over. We'll see. I do know that he has not responded on for sure whether or not, but I do know that there's been a lot of movement in that barn the last couple of weeks, and I've been watching keenly, as I'm sure a lot of other people in our area have been doing. So that's where we are right now, looking at that. But we realize that that may not be in the cards anymore.
And was the offer within the budget amount?
Yes.
So why did the property sell on March 25th to an investment firm for $85,000?
I don't know.
Okay, the property has been sold for $85,000.
Property on the corner?
Yes, ma'am, to an investment
Tell
person.
me why you didn't say you want to do it then.
So if you're gonna buy that property now, your budget is short and you're overpaying even further than what it's valued at.
I just talked to Victor today.
March 25th, I have the deed right here, it was filed with the county clerk,
How come you didn't call and tell me?
because I just found it yesterday.
How come you didn't call me yesterday?
Because I've been busy. Yeah, so when I got my budget book and went through it, so I was just wondering if this person who purchased it planned on doing a land donation to the school or selling it to the school for less than they paid for it.
Well, that would be great if they did.
Yeah, so it's all public, public records, you can go in and look at it. But it did sell for $85,000 and it was recorded on March 25th, with Val under the county clerk.
That'll be an adjustment to the budget.
At least for $85,000,
Well, I mean, I put it in.
because I'm not sure why they would sell it for less than they bought it for. And considering that you can't do anything on that quarter because it's already zoned. When I looked into that property in 2019, it was already zoned, public education. So I'm not sure why this person paid that much
Which is
money.
a conversation Victor and I had a conversation about, that it was already zoned for public education.
Here's his first American title.
We don't like your money.
I know, I was completely shocked because when I saw it in the budget book, I went in to look and see what the new property value was on it, knowing that I had the 2019 property value on it.
Yes.
Anyway,
So I think you guys got swooped. Or maybe somebody's really awesome and wants to donate it to the school.
I just spoke to Victor this morning.
I don't know what to tell you.
so maybe that we don't have that. For a
You
while, we
knew
don't
that I
have
would be upset, you should have called me.
Oh, I'm sorry, is it the building all big?
Okay. So anyway, that's a change in the budget we'll have to make, so you'll see that adjustment on May 2nd's budget. I will replace that page.
One way or the other.
Just jumping at 10.
What'd you say?
You might wanna think about pushing it to at least 90 to cover. I mean, the title transfer is only gonna cost you $200 or so. I don't think there's any, it was 85, so they're probably not gonna sell it for less than that. And I don't believe there's any back taxes, like hold an ad valorem report on it. I think the property taxes have all been paid except for 2022. So your 2022 property taxes would be over $400 or $500 based on last year. So
Well,
that's why I'm saying, don't throw it in there at 85, no.
well, I was
Here.
had it in the budget this year, mainly because if we did happen to buy it this year, which it was gonna have to come out of operating contingency, so I
Right.
wanted to make sure it was
It was
actually
budgeted.
spoken
Yeah.
for the next year, so I'll just have admin tell me.
Because last year it
what's
wasn't
the
put in the
ordinance.
404, so we would have had to have done a budget adjustment for it. I remembered that, which is why when I saw it, I was like, ooh, well, let's go see if it's still available. We should put enough money in there to cover it, and then I found that.
Yep, he never told us that, so, and that was around that same time, so
That's all the
probably waiting to
questions.
see if it went through or not.
Anybody else have any questions or comment?
Okay, that'll help.
All right, so Ray, you don't have anything else?
Just found that.
Yes.
One.
I guess we have another budget meeting set up for 8 PM on May 2nd.
8 p.m.?
No,
It's past my bedtime.
it's, we have to recess this budget meeting,
Oh, I'm sorry.
and I have 8 PM just because that was a average of
My
2
bad.
hours.
So on May 2nd. And
At
you
what
want
time?
questions?
6
At
p.m.
6 PM.
6
6 PM is the May 2nd.
And do you want questions emailed to you?
They can be emailed, yeah, please, to both Dan and I, would be great.
Unfortunately.
So I guess if nobody has any more questions, we can adjourn.
No,
Oh,
recess the
I'll
meeting.
recess the meeting. All right. Whatever that means.
It means that you don't have to
Take a break.
advertise for the meeting.